Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Side Hustle Ideas. I am Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for joining me today. This is the weekly live stream where we talk about everything entrepreneurial. So if you are looking to start your own business or to start your own side hustle, make a little money on the side, or possibly turn it into a new career, anything like that, you have come to the right place because that's what we're all about here. And this is primarily a live Q&A, so you can ask me anything to do with entrepreneurial type stuff. And you could do it by getting in the chat. So if you're seeing my beautiful face on this beautiful Monday morning, you should see some kind of chat box in the vicinity of my face on your device. And if you have been a subscriber to my channel for any amount of time, you can get in there and interact. The title of today's episode is The Entrepreneurial Mindset That Separates Winners from Everyone Else. That's what we're going to be talking about. This is episode number 95. And as always, a special shout out goes out to my YouTube channel members. You guys are awesome. How do I point to that? Right here, I guess. Right there. Membership has its privileges. My Patreons, my super thank donors, and of course to you, my viewers. Thank you for being here. So, let's dive into this. How can I put this? Some people are creative, some people are rebellious, and those are definitely good things. And something that's kind of annoyed me over the years is when they say creative types or creative people or creative areas, they always refer to fine arts, and that's fine. It is creative. But if the idea is that if you work in any other area besides fine arts, you can't be creative, that's clearly crap. When I was younger, I went to school for engineering. Engineering is a very creative thing. Even though you're working with math and scientific principles, it's very creative. You're trying to take human knowledge and be able to use it in new and exciting ways to solve problems, things that no one's ever done before, just by taking what we have. And it's a very creative thing in the same way that like an artist or whatever might take paint and a canvas, things that other people have developed, and use them in new and exciting ways to create something new and different, right? It's the same idea, And if you are rebellious at all, when you grow up, they probably tell you that that's bad, right? They tell you that, oh, no, you need to conform. You need to think exactly the same way as everybody else, right? And do the things that everybody else does, because that's the right and proper thing to do, right? You ever heard that one before? Well, if you are rebellious, if you have always been rebellious, you've got a rebellious streak, you can make that work for you, because entrepreneurship is about going against the grain. It's about doing something that nobody else is doing by definition, because that's what gives you an edge. So you can spin that your own way. So if you have ever felt you were either of those things, congratulations, you're awesome. And you can use that, definitely, to your own advantage and to benefit the world. As always, when we do these live streams for Side Hustle Ideas, I would like to challenge everybody that's watching this to get in the live stream and give me a side hustle idea that you think would be good to start a business. We can discuss that if you wish, but other people are interested in hearing that. Okay, so today in this topic is a little bit weird. It's a bit like sort of non-technical. Usually I like to talk about technical things, but this is very non-technical. This is more of a psychological, motivational kind of thing. That's usually not my bag. That's usually not kind of what I'm good at and what I personally think is really, really cool. But I don't know. I do think that this is important to talk about. Alwyn is here. Hello to Alwyn. And Sarah Bell is here. Says, to shift careers, do you recommend a free internship or a paid internship? Okay, well, we're not talking about how to get a job here. We're talking about entrepreneurship. That's the point of this live stream. I did get a question asking me about business books, as I often do for some reason. People want to know, what do I recommend when it comes to like a business book you could buy at a bookstore? And, traditionally, my answer to that has been the only book that I would recommend is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's the only thing I'd ever recommend. quite frankly, I find a lot of business books to be amateur. Like anyone who's gone to school, like you've gone to university to study something properly, like maybe you've taken medicine or you've taken law, you know what I'm saying? Like something big leagues, right? Now, you know that like if you've taken law, for example, you come home and you watch TV shows about like lawyers, like legal dramas, you know that you just laugh at it, right? Because it's just so amateur and stupid. Whereas you are learning law for real, right? If you've been to med school or you're in med school, you come home, you watch TV shows about doctors, ER or Dr. House or whatever, all those stuff they used to have. It's like you laugh because it's amateur and stupid, right? So that's kind of like business books, for people that have been to business school that have studied this stuff properly, you read somebody's coffee table book about like their advice on business or whatever, and you laugh because it's so amateur and stupid. It's somebody's opinion that's just been written into a book as if it's like a thing, Now, it's not all bad. There are some gems in a sea of crap, you know what I'm saying? But what I'd recommend if you want to learn business, if you want to do it properly, is what I've always recommended is like either go to business school, or if you can't, do the next best thing and read the books that they read in business school. You know what I'm saying? Like the textbooks. Because business it's really not that hard. You can't pick up like a third year medical book and just read it and understand everything if you're a layman. You know what I mean? Because you need lots of schooling and knowledge to get up to that point, right? But business is a little bit different. That's why you can take an MBA, a master's degree in business, if you've taken like schooling in any other area. You could have a bachelor degree in fine arts and then go and take a master's in business. You could take a bachelor degree in anything like law, medicine, architecture, animal husbandry, and then go take an MBA, like a business degree at the master's level. It really isn't rocket science. You can open the book and you can start reading it and you can understand. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I recommend. I don't recommend any real coffee table books. If you had to buy one of those, I would say get somebody's autobiography, someone who's done something and they're explaining what they did and how they did it. Maybe get that, but read it with a grain of salt. Those things have a lot of exaggeration and misrepresentation. It's somebody's idealized memories, so they're leaving stuff out and they're not telling you the whole story sometimes, but it's better than someone's opinion who's never done anything. You know what I mean? So that's what I'd always say. TQ says, is an LLC necessary if you're just starting out? Absolutely not. No. And we're going to get into that in a moment. Okay. Short answer, TQ, just do something. Just try to make sales, right? Come up with something of value and try to sell it. And if you can't do that, what does anything else matter? You know what I'm saying? Like whether you're an LLC or you're not, whether you have an accountant or you don't, whether you have an office or you don't, whether you have a website or you don't, you have business cards, et cetera, et cetera. None of that stuff matters, whether you have patented something or not. What does it matter if you can't get the idea off the ground? You can't actually get anyone interested in your idea to the point where they pay you. If you can't do that, the rest of it is irrelevant. It's actually worse for you because you've spent all this effort and time and money setting things up just to have it fail, right? It'll be better just to fail, not having spent as much time and money and effort on it. You know what I'm saying? Okay, now let's get into the main topic here, okay? The entrepreneurial mindset that separates winners from everyone else. First of all, I just want to say, entrepreneurship is awesome, okay? It's a beautiful combination of being able to drop out of society in the sense that you're not working as an employee, okay? It's a bit of rebellion because you're going your own path. You're not following everyone else. You're not living under somebody else's thumb. You're doing your own thing. And you also understand how to make money directly right? So you don't have to go through an intermediary like an employer, okay, to make money. You just make money wherever you are doing your thing directly, right? By having people pay you for delivering whatever it is that you do, right? Whether you make products, you provide services, whether you're a plumber or you're a developer writing code, whatever. You're a skilled trades person, you're a lecturer, you're, I don't know, like whatever it is that you do, you can generate money wherever you go, right? So you're independent of needing an employer, and because you're doing it yourself, you decide what you're going to do, and the sky's the limit. If you were an employee, there might have been some kind of a cap, a ceiling on what you could do just by using your skills. If you're an entrepreneur, the great thing is that there is no cap, there is no limit. Okay, you are free to take this into the stratosphere if that's what you want to do, right? You decide what to do. You decide how you're going to do it, and you do it entirely on your own terms. It is a wonderful thing. Okay, before we get started, if you want to learn business, check out that course, the $100 MBA. Not $100,000, $100. Check that out. Okay, more about that later. Okay, let's talk about some entrepreneurial traits or the mindset is the modern way of the modern term, mindset. Okay, I wrote down some stuff here. I don't know about any of you guys, but when I was younger, when I was like in my 20s, I had an extreme desire to learn about how stuff works, about how things are done in the real world. And I think one of the reasons why I thought that way was because I really did not know how things happen in the real world. It was a total mystery for me. I remember being something like 17 and being so inept that I couldn't find out what were the entrance requirements for a program in the local university that I wanted to go to after high school. And I had no idea how to do it. Of course, now you learn, well, if I had to do it again, you'd look it up on the internet today, but this is before the internet. So the way you did it back then is you just opened up the yellow pages, you called the university, you said, "Hi, I'm a student, I'm wanting to go into this program next year. What are the entrance requirements?" "Oh, you can't tell me that? Okay, no problem." Who can, right? Can you connect me with them? Very, very simple, right? Now, I didn't even have the ability to do that, but because I was so inept at this stuff, I didn't know how anything worked. It really, for whatever reason, it kind of made me want to learn how things work, how you get stuff done, right? So after a while, maybe a couple years later, I fell in love with the idea of business because it was very empowering. You can make money. You could do your own thing. It's even like got a creative element. You decide what to do and how to do it. You do it entirely on your own terms, and you make your fortune. I thought it was a fascinating thing. And I tried to learn everything I could possibly learn about it. And I struggled for a while in the wilderness, and then eventually I got into I took an MBA, and then I learned it all. But I tried several things. Okay, so that extreme desire to learn how things work and what's going on. Entrepreneurs have that. You want to learn how something is done. If you don't know how to do it, you want to learn how it's done. You value that, and you're interested in it, and it doesn't go away as I smack my microphone around. Okay? And people that have this mindset, this is not like a short-term thing. You're interested in it 1 week, and then the next week you've lost interest. This is something that you have like long-term. If there's an element about it, maybe you're interested in the people element, how people interact, what they do all day. Or maybe you're interested in the money element. How do people make money? Like that customer just bought something from you. How did you do that? Like something like that, right? Maybe that's what you're interested in, but some element of it, I'd encourage you to sort of find out if you are that person that has an interest in some element of it. Use that as a jumping off point to sort of learn about this, and it's not some fad interest, something that stays with you. Let's talk to, we got Alwyn here. Says, is it legal for the employer to restrain an employee? Okay, so you are talking about side hustles. Is it legal for the employer to restrain the employee from doing a side hustle? No, No, it's well, not in any country I'm familiar with. Like in the West, it's not legal for that to happen. Will side hustles become an issue with my current 9-to-5 job? HR explicitly asked whether I'm doing side hustle. Okay, so here's the deal. Very briefly, Alwyn, employers don't like you doing side hustles, all things being equal. They don't like that. You know why? Because first of all, your loyalty is now split between your day job and your side hustle, right? The other thing is that by definition, if you had to choose between an employer and a side hustle, all things being equal, you would always choose your side hustle because your side hustle is entirely your own creative kind of thing. You do it entirely on your own terms, and it's exactly what you want to do, right? So nobody's going to choose an employer over a side hustle if the money was the same. The only reason that you would have a day job is because you can't make your side hustle successful to the point where it would support you and replace your day job, right? So the other thing is that there's a lot of other reasons too. Like they're worried that maybe what you're doing is you're taking the knowledge or the access that you have with your day job and you're using that to make money for yourself on the side. And that would directly violate, the company's employment agreement and stuff if you're using confidential information and, you're using your position in the company to make money entirely on the side for yourself. So they don't like it. Okay. So what you do is you do your side hustle anyway, but you just don't disclose it to your employer. If it goes somewhere, great. It eventually replaces your day job. You do it full time and the sky's the limit. If it doesn't go anywhere, oh well, you tried something, maybe you made a little money on the side, you learned something, you developed your skills, better luck next time, You could keep it going in the background or you could just drop it, but it's not illegal for them to prevent you. But they don't like it if you're doing a side hustle because your loyalty is divided and, if they find out about it, you never know. Some employers, they will take steps to replace you in your day job because they suspect that, okay, we know where this is going. Once their side hustle gets built up and it's become successful, they're out of here. And employers don't like it when you quit. They want to be in control of who leaves. They want to be able to fire you or lay you off rather than have you quit on them. It's more disruptive. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Alexis says, I appreciate how you've been mentioning careers in the skill trade. Well, yeah. I mean, listen, it's a thing, okay? Some people think it's like the be-all, end-all. It isn't, okay? But it's definitely a thing. And just like anything else, there's like the sort of really high-end pro side to it, and there's the really low-end ugly side to it. There's a lot of very smart, capable people in that space that are on their A game. They're like master craftspeople and stuff. They know their stuff. They live for it. On the other hand, you get a lot of real dumbasses doing it because they can't do anything else. It really runs the gamut. You know what I'm saying? So it depends kind of where you are, in the skill trades, if it's truly skilled, there's a thing there. And like anything else, if you can combine skill trades with entrepreneurship, you can rule the world. If you combine skill trades with, this sort of union entitlement bubble where I don't understand the real world and I don't care to, it can be bad. That can catch up with you eventually. I've personally seen both. And I've worked in both those areas. So it depends what you do. The devil's in the details, put it that way. But it is a thing. Arcade Glide says, well, I have an idea. If you are looking for a side hustle that's from a technical person's perspective, I've spent a lot with tech and software. Hardware rental is necessary for any company. Okay. It can be small or large, just how AWS and other providers do. Okay. Alex, tips on getting a job with a large gap in employment. Yeah, that's not what we're here to talk about. This is about entrepreneurship, about side hustles. Okay, I got the answer. Thank you. Right on. Okay, so where did I leave off here? We talked about an extreme desire to do things, if you are curious, if you want to learn how things happen in this world, that's awesome. And I would encourage you to pursue that. Keep that curiosity. Keep learning about how things happen. Business is the scientific study of how to make money. That's what it is. But it crosses over into other areas. Like, for example, leadership is a thing that you learn in business. It's not exclusively to business. For example, you have leadership in politics, right? If you study political science and all this kind of stuff, a lot of it is about, there's a certain component about leadership and influencing, just like there is in business, right? You need to be able to get people to behave as you would have them behave. So, for example, if you're managing a team of employees, you need to be able to, for them to show up on time and get down to work and do things the way you want them to do it, right? If you're a politician, you need to be able to get people to know about you and to like you and to want to vote for you, right? So that's definitely a thing. Now, if you have a desire to learn how the world works, how business happens, how influencing happens, that's a great thing, you know? Keep learning. The more you learn about that stuff, the further you will go, no matter what your vocation is. And if you're an employee or you're an entrepreneur, you will come out on top the more you learn about that stuff. Okay. So I would encourage everybody with that kind of mentality. Thinking things like done is better than perfect. I know that's a cliche, but that's definitely a thing. There are some people that don't start a business, they don't start a side hustle or anything else because they are perfectionists. They want everything to be planned to the nth degree before they actually start. And the reality is that unlike a lot of other areas in life, you can't plan this stuff to the nth degree, right? You're learning about how stuff works and you're trying to do your own original thing to varying degrees, and you will never have all the knowledge right up front. And you get that knowledge by experimentation, by trying things and seeing how it goes. And if you don't get the result that you're predicting, it's about figuring out why you didn't get that. So if you try to sell something, you think everybody's going to go for this, and you put it out there and then nothing happens, that's not what you're expecting. Now you have to figure out why. Why did I get that response or lack of response? What am I missing? And this requires you to open your mind. And that's hard for young people. My God, that was hard for me. I couldn't do that. When I was in my 20s, I knew it all. No one could tell me anything. I knew it all. I had done absolutely nothing, but simultaneously I knew everything, right? And it takes really failing, at least for me, to get over that ego trip and to start being humble and to realize, I don't actually understand how this stuff works. So now I'm open to observing and learning because clearly my idea of how things work doesn't pan out. That's not what we see, So my hat goes off to people that have that objectivity, especially when they're young. And if you can get that, plus you can get confidence at the same time, that's like a winning combination. Because there are people who are just timid and unsure of themselves, and that's why they're open-minded. They always think everybody knows how it works except for me. But then they won't go out and try anything because they lack confidence in their own abilities, right? What you'd want to get ideally is someone that, they have a desire to learn. They recognize that they just don't know it all. So they're open to observing and learning and really seeing how things work. But yet they have the confidence to actually try things, not be afraid to do it. It almost seems like a couple of traits that contradict each other a little, but then again, that's what you need. And later on in my life, when I went back and worked as a mentor and a consultant for, small businesses and startup founders and things like this, it's like I worked with all kinds. I worked with a lot of those type of people that they were struggling. They couldn't get their idea off the ground, but yet you couldn't tell them anything because, God damn it, they knew it all. You would give them advice and they'd say, no, 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 that's not right. It works like this. But yet simultaneously they're failing and they can't make it work. You know what I mean? And then you get the other type of people, which are just too timid to really do anything. You know, they sort of fell into something that's working, but yet they lack confidence in their own abilities to even try things or try anything different. You know what I mean? They're always seeking validation, always seeking someone to tell them that, you know, you have permission to do that, because they don't have confidence in their own abilities to do it themselves. Where did I leave off here? Okay, we did Alex there. Alexis says, how does an entrepreneur keep creating something that remains in demand? Oh, that's pretty general. See, I'm a technical introvert. I don't do well with very general questions. I do very, very well with specific questions. Well, you ask a general question, so you get a general answer. It's by constantly understanding your customers, okay? Usually, not always, but usually for smaller businesses, whether it's a one-person business or a small business, okay, they will serve a small market. That means they will have a small group of customers, right, that they service, okay? So either they sell products to or they provide services to, right? And you're asking, like, how do they create something that remains in demand over time? Well, there's many answers to that, but assuming you are in a business that does change and you're having to move with the times to keep what you do in demand, it's because you know your audience, your market, better than anyone else. So as you see their needs start to change, you first of all see that, right? Then you sort of figure, okay, what can I do to help them with that? You know, in the past, they would do this thing, and that's where I'd step in and provide my services. But now they're wanting to go on the internet and look at people over the world and do it remotely. How can I serve them when that's what they're wanting to do? You know, so maybe I change what I do. I provide it over the internet or remotely or whatever, you know. But I see that change first up. I see that before anyone else does. And then I have a chance to work with them and probe them and say, like, look, if we provided this variation on what we do, would you go for that? Would that work for you? Or perhaps this thing, what do you recommend? What are you looking for? And, you know, if you listen to that and you take it into account and you change with your changing market, that's how you remain in demand, right? RK Glide says, I always wonder how we get a type of network, like getting to know people who are in position and people with the same mentality like we do. Yeah, it's very simple, RK. You go out and you meet them, right? I'm an introvert. I suspect you're an introvert. There's a lot of introverts on the internet, on places like YouTube, right? And that's fine. My understanding is that YouTube's introverts are like 50% of all human beings. There's introverts and extroverts, and it's pretty evenly split. And it's a continuum. So some people can be pure introverts or pure extroverts. Other people can be somewhere in the middle. You know, you're a slight introvert, right? You know, I'm definitely a major introvert, but I learned how to talk to people early on. And it started out with just how to talk to a person one-on-one. You know, you get terribly nervous. You don't know what to do. You end up looking down. You end up kind of talking quiet. You know, I artificially forced myself to do the opposite of that, to like look people in the eye, to speak louder, you know, and then little tips like recognizing that what today we would call the spotlight effect. People don't care about you, right? They care about themselves. So if you want someone to be interested in talking to you, you ask them questions about them. And you get them to talk about themselves, right? And first of all, they'll be really into that. They'll love talking about themselves. Everybody does, right? That's human nature. You'd love to talk all about what you think and what you've done and, you know, what you think the world should be like, you know. You find that incredibly interesting, right? Whereas maybe somebody else might be going to sleep, right? Listening to you. But the thing is, if you talk to people that can help you, that are maybe one level above you, people that you can learn from, this is good. You want them to talk about themselves, right? So when you ask someone about themselves, they love you. They give you full and complete information, and that's one way to learn, right? You know, going to a place, there's another kind of cliche, it's fish where the fish are. So if you're looking for like-minded people to yourself, you know, you don't know where these people are, you go to where they congregate. You know, you don't go to a place where those people don't hang out. You go to where you would find them. You know? You know what I mean? Like if it's a bunch of technical people you're wanting to connect with, you know, go to, I don't know, a class, go to a place online that's technical for technical people. That's where you're going to have contact with some of those people. You know what I mean? Alex says, my business isn't profitable enough for me to sustain as someone with a large gap in employment. Getting a job is difficult. Not sure how it's not relevant to the topic. Well, I'm just not here to talk about jobs. This is the one live stream I do where we talk about entrepreneurship. The other ones are all about job search. So if you're talking about the side business, all I would say for the side business is you've got to, in my opinion, you should compartmentalize those, okay? So, for example, when you go to a job interview to get a job after you've, I guess, taken a gap in having a job because you've done a side business or something, you would not mention, you want to mention the side business because it demonstrates all kinds of great qualities about you. You know, you've got initiative, you're a self-starter, you understand business, you can organize things, you can plan things, you can course correct, you can control things, you understand a little bit of accounting and finance, you understand a little bit of marketing. I mean, incredible skills, right? Especially if you're tacking this onto like a technical career, right? Incredible. The problem is that this is not what employers want to hear. They don't want to hear that you have a side business because they don't want to hire you because they think this person, they're not a good choice because if I hire them, their heart's not going to be really into this job that I'm going to give them. They got their own thing going on, right? Like that's what they really want to do. The only reason they're here is because that thing isn't working out. So, you know, so that basically means that once you start talking all about like your entrepreneurial efforts in a job interview, it's kind of the kiss of death a lot of times. Not always, but it's just not a good idea. As much as you'd like to tout all that stuff, it's not going to have the result that you're hoping for. Okay, so they're going to see it as a negative, right? So the best thing to do is just downplay all of that. Just compartmentalize it. You don't mention the side hustle stuff when it comes to your day job world, okay? And if you had to justify a work app, you would do it through other means. You'd say, I went back to school or I did some volunteering or whatever it is. This kind of thing. You know, you try and sell it that way, but not by full disclosure about this stuff. TQ says, I'm the type who has ideas, but always tries to predict what issues may happen and then end up not launching. Yeah, you see, that's the problem. And that's a great thing to bring up, TQ. Thank you for that, because that, you're not alone. That affects everybody, okay? It's this weird type of procrastination where procrastination is not a good word. It's like a very negative word. It's not a negative thing. I think it's because we've been conditioned through schooling and stuff, like to approach everything in a very sort of controlled way, to find out how it all works and then do it, to ask permission before we do anything, to get approval for it first, and then get instructions on what to do. Like that's how we've been conditioned, right? When you get a conventional career, when you work as an employee, that's what you do. You don't just go out and do stuff. You are conditioned to ask permission first. You know, you don't want to overstep. You don't want to, annoy anybody, least of all your boss. And then, there must be a procedure on this. Let's find the procedure and let's do it. The problem is entrepreneurship doesn't work that way. It's like you're hacking the system. You're going outside of the rules. There are no rules, There's no one telling you what to do and how to do it. You have to sort of muddle through it. Now, the way to do it is to try and say, like, look, I have no idea what I'm doing, but you got to start somewhere, and I'm just going to try this. And you know what? This is probably going to fail. But you know what? If it does, that's okay, because I'm going to learn something. One way or another, I'm going to learn something. And then if it fails, I'm going to see if I can find out why it failed. And then I'm going to try and fix it. I'm going to iterate. I'm going to change up what I'm doing, make an improvement to what I'm doing, and then try that. And lather, rinse, repeat, right? So how do you get success doing that? Number one, you kind of, in a way, you expect failure and you're okay with it. Number two, you've managed the risk. So, okay, you might risk your time being wasted, or you risk you're like a little bit of rejection or whatever, but it's not unexpected. You sort of have to recognize, I'm going to push for this, I'm going to push for that. You're already ahead of most people who never even try, right? They didn't get anywhere because they didn't even try. You tried. Now, either you're going to succeed doing it, or you're going to learn something, right? So either way, it's a win. And then the person that tends to do like very quick iterations, very quick course correcting, they're the ones that eventually win, right? Because they learn how everything works, and they learn what needs to happen, and they make it happen. I'm getting sucked into just going down the questions here. First of all, thank you for the questions. We've got some very intelligent questions today. There's 27 people here. Thank you for being here. I hope you are into what you're seeing. Just a reminder, if you want to learn business, check out that course. Okay, there's a link in the description. If you want to learn business with me, do that. I created that course for entrepreneurs because the material they teach you at business school, first of all, the vast majority of it is in the public domain. Secondly, it's in books that you can order for literally $5 off Amazon. You're not reading coffee table books. You're reading the same books that they use in university, in the business programs, in the MBA programs, in places like Harvard Business School. Some of the best universities in the world, the books that they use, the textbooks, you can order those off Amazon. And unlike a lot of other topics, like marine biology or medicine or law, at the master's level, if you picked up those and started reading it without knowing anything about marine biology or medicine or law, it would be gobbledygook. You couldn't understand it, right? But business, it's surprisingly intuitive and easy to learn. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. You can pick up the book and, you can start reading the books in an MBA program and understand it, right? If you have a high school education, you can read this stuff and it's not gobbledygook. So what that course does is it's a self-study program. It'll teach you everything that you will learn in a brick and mortar 2-year MBA program, which is the gold standard for how to learn business. It's the scientific study of making money. The catch is it's entirely self-study. You have to do it yourself. I provide you videos that guide you through it, but the main learning is by reading the books. So you can I've had students that they go really in depth and it takes a long time, or they just skim it. If they just want a cursory overview of everything, right? Some people do that, and they can do it in a short amount of time, relatively quickly. And that's all they need. And as they learn more about entrepreneurial type stuff, they're trying to do a business, they can come back to it, Anyway, check that out. There's a link in the description. I've also made videos on explaining what the course is about and how it works. So it's very transparent. So check that out. Okay, what did I have not mentioned here? We talked about done is better than perfect, right? So, just if you're a perfectionist like me, that can be a really tough thing, right? You want to do everything perfectly. And unfortunately, that means that you're spending extraordinary amounts of time and effort on things when you don't need to, especially if it's a first attempt at something. The important thing is that you do something. That's more important than having it be perfect. And even if you try and make it perfect, it won't end up being perfect because it's your first attempt, Here's another radical new idea that you may or may not be aware of. Growth over ego. Winners accept criticism. They don't just, like, it's never fun hearing criticism. It's never fun discovering that the thing you didn't work. But when you're told the reasons for it, or you have evidence of the reasons for it, you don't just dismiss it out of hand. You take it into account, right? And you learn. You're open-minded enough to learn. Okay? Here's some ideas I want to throw out. Practice getting rejected 10 times per week. Try things. Get on Facebook, get on LinkedIn, get on whatever social media platform of your choosing. Go to a place where people congregate, certain people, like in groups or whatever. Put something out there. Just say, hey, I have this for sale for this much. This is what it does. This is how it works. Who's interested, right? And then see if you get any responses. Right? Now, if you get no responses, no one's interested. If you do get responses, then maybe it's worth pursuing that. If you offered something that you could do, it would be possible to do that, then maybe that's suggesting that's something you might pursue. Right? Try things. Go and try learning about networking. If you're an introvert, go and learn how people do networking. Very, very important. Whether you're an entrepreneur or whatever you're doing in life, it's very important. Business, unfortunately, for introverts, business is based on people being connected. Think of it. At the very least, a business has to be connected to customers. If it's not connected to customers, it's not going to get very far in making money, right? Being successful. In order to be connected to customers, customers need to know of your existence. You need to know who these people are, where they are, why they're interested, because you understand them. You're connected. And they're connected to you, right? That's just the tip of the iceberg. In order for that to work, you need also to be connected to suppliers, partners, contractors, regulators, all the supply chain people, like up and down the supply chain, partners, the government, like everything, right? It's all based on connection. And the more connections you have, the more successful you'll be. So if you're an introvert type, learn a bit about networking. If you're not sort of brave enough to pick up the phone or to meet people in person, at least do it online. Like, connect with people online, get them to respond. And if they're not responding, find out why that is and what you need to do. Okay, if you want to learn that with me, I have that stuff in that course if you're interested in learning it there. But one way or another, find out how that stuff works. Whether you're an employee climbing the ladder or you're an entrepreneur trying to get customers, it'll help. Okay, take a small risk every week, like a managed risk. Take a small risk every week. Try something. And you manage the risk. You don't bet your entire life savings, something you can't recover from if it fails, right? But you risk your time being wasted or you risk being rejected. Some small risk. Take one of those, at least one every week. Right? Two more things that I would say is that there's a way out of every box, a solution to every puzzle. It's just a matter of learning. And, one of the things that, for me, is that, because I'm an introvert, I didn't want to have to network in a very extroverted way to get my thing off the ground when I was an entrepreneur. I didn't want to do that. But I found alternatives, right? If you learn business principles, you learn how people work, things like this, you can make stuff happen. That's why I've advocated on this YouTube channel, whether you're trying to get a job or you're trying to start a business, to do the networking. If you're an introvert, to do a certain type of networking where you do a lot of it online, but that can turn into a face-to-face thing if you get people to invite you down to talk to them, right? If they genuinely want to talk to you and they invite you down, they say, come down, we'd very much like to speak with you. Then you can go and talk face to face. That's the way I recommend doing it, because that's what worked for me, right? You know what I mean? You can adapt whatever you do to your personal needs. You know, so but that's not a reason to not do it, right? You just do it the way that works for you. Every solution has a puzzle. And the last thing I would say is that you know, this is something that a lot of job seekers don't know. On my YouTube channel, I talk to a lot of job seekers in the live streams, and this is something that a lot of job seekers don't understand. They don't know how to ignore the 95%, which is noise, and only focus on the 5%, which is substance, right? For example, they will apply for a job one time, and they don't get a call back, so they go, this doesn't work. You know, it's like, obviously that's the wrong thinking, right? The way you get a job is you apply to many things, and it'll be a very small ratio. It'll be like 1% or 5% callback rate, where they'll call you in for an interview or something. You know what I mean? Like, you could apply to 100 jobs, you might get one interview or something like that. Like, it'll be a very small ratio. But that's okay, because you've got one interview. If you want one interview, you apply to 100 jobs. It works like that. If you want 2 interviews, you apply to 200 jobs on average, or whatever the ratio is for you. You know? That's the same thing with this. If you're reaching out to people, you're trying to do networking, or you're trying to get customers, it works exactly the same way. You know, some people will hate you no matter what you do. A lot of other people will just be indifferent. But some people will say yes. They'll think what you're doing is awesome. You know? And so you do it for those small amount of people that say yes. You don't shy away just because you heard that somebody doesn't care or somebody doesn't like what you're doing. You don't give up, right? You realize that it's a numbers game. It's a ratio, right? You know, maybe what you're doing didn't work for that person. Oh, well. But you know what? It works for a lot of others, right? So realizing that. Okay, where do we leave off here? Okay, TQ. I think I responded to that one. Alexa says, do you have any recommendations for where to go to get a digital address for a side business with no physical location? No, I don't. I don't even know what country you're in. I mean, you could do a search. I mean, did you try asking ChatGPT? Like, you say, in my region, where would I go to get this or something? I don't know. I don't even know what a digital address is. Are you talking about like an IP address? I mean, you could get that from your internet service provider, you know, like a static IP, if that's what you're talking about. Kislov says, can you tell us, sir, why your theme is shifting to entrepreneurship? Do you really believe that it's a teachable thing? I can tell you haven't really followed my channel for any amount of time. I've been doing that for years on this channel. Anyway, okay, I'm going to throw out some stuff here for you guys if you feel so inclined to put in the chat. Put in the chat, let me tell you, when has perfection ever stopped you from launching? Has that happened to you? Have you experienced that? Okay, if so, when did that happen? Has perfection ever stopped you from launching? That's something I'd be interested to hear, because that's very, very common. And if that's you, you are not alone. Here's another one. What's a fear that has secretly been dominating you? You know, maybe the fear of rejection, right? That's pretty common. That's a very common thing. You know, or like we've been talking about today, the fear of networking. Some people just shy away from. A big part of why I've seen that is because people don't really understand what networking is. Like, in their minds, they've got this idea that it's this big, specific thing that's really horrible. It's like, no, it isn't. Networking is simply people talking to people, right? You know, if you get along with somebody that you met at your job and you talk, that's networking. You know what I mean? Like, in that case, you want to talk to each other because you like each other, because you have things in common. That's networking, you know? Networking is an umbrella term. It means a lot of different things, a lot of different activities, but the key thing is people interacting with other people, right? So that can happen in person, that can happen remotely, that can happen, because you just sort of find yourself together. It can happen because you targeted and you reached out to somebody specific. It involves a hell of a lot of things, right? That can be done a lot of different ways. Okay, so that's networking. So what's a fear that has secretly been dominating you? Perhaps a fear of networking, a fear of rejection. What about a fear of people saying no? Have you ever felt that? Has that prevented you from doing something or from starting something? The fear of like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna put this out there, and then someone's gonna say no, and then I'll be so devastated that I'll just go to pieces, and I really don't want that to happen, so I'm too afraid to start. I'm too afraid to do this thing. Let me know if that strikes a chord with you, if that's ever happened to you. And finally, what's a small, bold move that you can take today? You know what you want to do. You know what you're interested in learning, or kind of areas that you're wanting to explore, either to start a business or to further your knowledge or to gain skills or gain some kind of advantage. What is that area? What's something you can do today that will help you go further towards accomplishing that goal? Let me know this stuff. Put it in the chat. Let's talk about it. Sue Marin says, the fear of putting my face online. Yeah, that's real. Some people, I'm talking to you over YouTube. A lot of people have a fear of putting themselves on camera. They find it horrible. They don't want to hear their voice recorded. They don't like the sound of their own voice. When a camera is on you, or when a person is looking at you, you freeze up. You don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. You feel very awkward. So Sue Marin, you're not alone in that one. That's something. Now, there are real, perhaps, issues behind that. Like, okay, if I put my face on there, is there like a real reason that could harm me in some way? Now, sometimes it's real, sometimes it's imagined, right? It's a perception thing. So it's for you to determine what the deal is there, right? I'm trying to think back to like if I had that, and I think that it would probably be the fear of people discovering that you're online and then watching the video or looking at the picture or whatever it is, like say people from where you work seeing an image of you, whether it's a picture or a video, and you're not in a work in a context. You're like, it's like vacation pictures or something like that. Like you're not in the same context that they normally interact with you, right? And that's the thing. And like for myself, all I can say is that the spotlight effect is real. It's like nobody cares. Now, if I were to go out and advertise and tell everybody at my job, like, go to this URL because I've got a thing that I did, I did an arts and crafts project and I'm showing it to you in a video, right? If I hadn't gone out of my way to bring that picture or that video to their attention, they would have never discovered it on their own. Now, if you label yourself, you label like, okay, this image, this is my full name, this is my city, this is where I work, something like that. Maybe it's conceivable they could discover it, right? But unless you do that, you can try and compartmentalize that stuff too. You hide your name. Why do you think my channel was called The Company's Expert? It's like, first of all, I don't like people that just name stuff after their name, because I don't care about your name. I don't know. That means nothing to me. At least if I call myself something like The Company's Expert, then you might think it's something to do with business, You get an idea of what it's about, right? But that was half the reason. You don't get a lot of ex-CEOs on YouTube blabbing all about what they think about everything, without any without any restrictions. There's a reason for that. I basically am committing career suicide by doing this. But the thing is, a lot of people that I would do business with, they're not on YouTube, So it really isn't this thing where like they watch all my videos or anything. That's not a thing. So, so a lot of that, I don't want to go out of my way and say like this applies 100% to you, Sumane, but I will say that for me, it was largely in my head. It was a perception thing. In reality, nobody cares. And unless you're advertising it, they're never going to even find out it exists. You know what I mean? So that's the thing that eventually convinced me to do it. And I did it in baby steps. I kind of put my toe in the water and did a couple of things and then did some more things, and it just went from there. So I'm not sure if that's helpful, but that's what I'd say to that. Anyway, there are still 27 people here. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. I have to sign off now because I have another live stream beginning. And I'm doing a collaboration with Abby from the YouTube channel Life Work Balance. So I will see you guys in a few minutes. Check out my course if you want to learn business from me. And I will be back in a week, same time. So take care, everyone.